Before we begin worship, I want to, as we sometimes do in the spirit of wholeness and healing, acknowledge harm and hurt and our ways to heal and attend to it. Last week's worship, there was a time, it was a beautiful and inspiring worship, but there was a time of prayer that included a litany of the heartbreak and hurt in the world. A litany that is so easy to incompletely catalog in any moments, but last week in particular, which included the omission of naming the 6 hostages who were killed, Israeli hostages who were killed and who were returned to their families last week. I want to thank those who brought that to our attention for doing so. And I want to say that right now, I think we all recognize that with this conflict in particular, it's important to name and hold the enormity of the loss, and particularly as we add to our voices to the call to end the senseless and unnecessary sacrifices that are being made in that part of the world. And so I apologize for the oversight. And I'd like us to take a moment, striking our bowl gong, which those who have been here know we have used in the past as a way to ritually hold silence when we're holding the river of suffering. That's also part of life in this world. And so, in a recognition for the losses on both sides and the 6 lives last week that were lost so tragically, and in our ongoing prayers for an end to the violence in Israel and Gaza, we strike our gong and hold sacred silence. And now let me say welcome. Welcome to everybody, those who are joining us on LIVESTREAM, and all of you here, especially our children and youth and your families. I know you're in the midst of startups of all kinds, and we are all here at the beginning, at the cusp of the start of our program year in this congregation, and it's wonderful to be back together this particular Sunday. I am Vanessa Southern. I'm the senior minister of this congregation, the First Unitarian Universalist Society of San Francisco, and I am joined on the chancel by so many folks already, and will be by more, as you'll see as the service unfolds. But first, Laura Shenham, our minister of congregational life, my colleague in ministry, Daniel Jackaway, our worship associate this morning, and if you weren't here last week, you might not recognize this human. This is Kate Steinberg, who will be with us through June as our ministerial intern. So welcome to Kate. It's her first time robing, which is this symbolic moment for us of erasing ourselves for larger service and all sorts of beautiful symbolism. So it's lovely to have Kate with us. I hope you'll make sure to welcome her in the weeks ahead. I want to thank Reiko Odelaine for opening us so powerfully with music, and will close us out with organ music. I'm going to welcome our choir. Isn't our choir singing? Are you all sitting just down here among us? Oh, wonderful. Great. Under the leadership of Mark Sumner and other folks who will lead us, our soloists will lead us in song later, so thank you all for that. Our AV team, thank you. Our facilities team for preparing the building. Everybody who cooked for the waffle breakfast and cleaned for the waffle breakfast and did the hard work of eating for the waffle breakfast, thank you. And the whole staff who prepared for the beginning of this year, and lay people, the planning, the joyful expectation. This is a year, as if you've read the newsletter, you might already know, or looked around in the lobby at the completely redone bulletin boards. Thank you to Emma Wakeling and Alicia Cover for that incredible work. I don't know if Alicia's here. Alicia? No? All right. She is here today, and she deserves a huge debt of gratitude for that. But this is a year when we're going to be looking over the course of the year to the whole theme of what does it mean, I mean, we should all years, but this year intentionally, to live our Unitarian Universalist faith. And each month, there's a word that sort of gathers our thinking around that particular word and all that it holds as potentially a practice. So September, that word is invitation. So what does it mean to us? What are we being invited into in the world, in our lives, in this congregation? What does it mean to accept an invitation, to offer one? Just to play with that whole notion of what our commitments and our sense of what it means to be ourselves in the world and service and living with depth. What does that call out for us? And we have all sorts of ways that you can engage that. Robert Levette Smith, our poet in-house, who we're lucky to have as a member of this congregation, has written a sonnet for each month that you can reflect on. We have an image that we're pulling out for each month, and we have some guided words, and actually Kate recorded a beautiful version of those if you just want to listen with that image or any other as part of Visio Divina, an ancient practice of deepening and reflection. We have small groups. We have groups that are engaging the process of articulating your own theology. We have all sorts of practices and invitations, books to read that are part of us going deep together. And we hope you'll engage them. I hope you'll look at the bulletin boards where you can actually offer some of what's coming up for you over the month. There's pieces of paper and 3 different sides where you can post. You can see the poem if you haven't already and the image. And in the words of Robert Levette Smith, the opening line to his poem, written just for us, we invite you to think of September as an invitation. There's one more introduction that I want to do as part of our welcome this morning. As many of you know, past ministers in their transitions are asked as part of our denominational practices to step away for a year or sometimes 2 so the congregation can really take hold of the grief and the reality that they are no longer serving as active ministers of the congregation. But if you're lucky, as we have been with Reverend Margot, Reverend John, Reverend Fred, if you're lucky, they choose to come back and reconnect to the congregation as a member and a retired colleague. And we are lucky. 2 years ago, the Reverend Allison Jacks retired from this congregation. She's had a wonderful chapter that included things like travel, including time in her beloved sacred landscape of Maine. But today she is back in the congregation wearing her signature hat. Allison, if you would step for those who don't know you, and we welcome you back. So welcome back. I'm sure I don't have to invite people to greet you at coffee hour, they will. A reminder, you're free to wear masks. There's a mask-only section. If your pets brought you to church today, normally you could sit in the pet section, but you'd be sitting with the choir today, which is fine. And if there's anything that we can do to make your time here and your ability to be fully here possible, hearing-assisted devices in the back, anything, you let us know. You are welcome here. The 13th century Islamic scholar and Sufi mystic, Maulana Jalal-ad-Din Rumi, wrote these words as words of invitation that we open our service with today. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vow 1,000 times, Come. Yet again, come. Come.